How's it going, guys? Coffee here. Today I wanted to go over my SS5 starter recommendation for Bing. This is for the Clockwork Ballet season. With this Bing, you are using these Arrow Einherjar skill here in order to utilize all of the beneficial hero traits that Bing has, specifically in regards to projectiles. So if you see Bing here himself, he does have this massive multiplier to additional projectile damage in basically every single slot that you have here. So you're getting 50% more additional projectile damage here. You're getting another 30% here because of runway with you running around. With throwing bombs, you get 30% for every bomb you throw, which is why we end up using this memory here. This is being buffed in the patch notes as well, so it will give you 3 additional bombs instead of 2. So you'll be getting instead of getting 90% from this, you'll be getting 120% out of this instead. And then we are getting another 60% additional damage here, as well as out of radiation effect, you're getting another 120% damage with your projectile speed. And then we can safely run these memory traits here that lower our projectile quantity, but give us a more projectile damage as well on both of these. And then on your relic, you want to be running this with the additional damage if there's an elite within 3 meters around a bomb when it detonates. So the reason why we are able to utilize this so well is that the arrows that are shot by the arrow sentry are not affected by projectile quantity bonuses at all. So what that means is, again, we can run things like that, which are going to lower the quantity of the projectiles, but it's not actually going to affect the sentries at all. So that means we can basically utilize things to get really, really high damage without having any of the downsides and really take advantage of this. When it comes to leveling this build, you do get Arrow Sentry around level 12 is when you want to actually spec into it. So when you first start leveling, you're just going to use the Blazing Bullet that you start with until you get to level 12. You'll unlock Sentry at that point. And at that point, you can just start using Arrow Sentry full time as you level up. I recommend getting this Sentry area and duration as you level here. You grab this Sentry crit as you come across, and then you just grab the Sentry damage, and then the additional Sentry damage if a skill hasn't been used. The skill cast frequency can really come in handy early on as well. So you can pick this up and you can swap it out later as you need more defenses or whatnot. It really comes down to personal preference if you feel like you need the crit, or if you feel like you just want the skill cast frequency, which is how often they will attack themselves. For your second tree here, you are using Overly Modified. And then we just go straight into this Machinist tree. So this character is pretty smooth. You do get to use the exact same skills pretty much all the way leveling up, and then in the end game as well, in regards to you level with the one skill and you use it all the way. So for the Machinist tree here, we are taking Heat Up, which is just, again, more Sentry damage. And then so this is recently would be within the last 4 seconds. So you do want to make sure that you are casting these. But because you have 2 Sentry skills, you can basically cast the second Sentry skill in order to get the bonus back up without having to recast your main sentries and interrupt their cast and attack speed. So then we use Co-Resonance here, which gives all of your attack and cast speed bonuses to also affect the Sentry, as well as give them a chance to deal double damage. So in regards to this tree, the same thing again here. I grabbed this barrier shield here, but while leveling, you probably don't need the barrier shield for defenses just because this character is so good offensively. You can grab this Sentry skill cast frequency here, or you can grab the Sentry skill cast frequency here at the end as well. And then for the last tree, you are just running Shadow Dancer here. This is a tree that, again, you're not really going to be putting the points into like super early. You're not going to touch this tree until you finish the Machinist tree at all. But with this, it's the same thing. You're just going all into attack and cast speed, and then you're getting your crit damage here, your crit chance here, and then you are just grabbing some projectile speed and some projectile damage and area damage, as well as skill area. You're taking some sealed mana here, and then you're just grabbing this flat physical damage to spells and attacks. You can grab some of the life from here as well if you want. The life regain is not going to do anything, but if you want like the extra life and the extra things, you can go here, or if you want to go ES, you can put that as here as well. When you start to put in your points for defenses, I only leveled this character to about level 80. Taking it all the way to level 90, you'll start actually putting these points into defenses here for max life and max ES. You can build this character either way for max life or max ES. It's completely up to your personal preference. But let's go over the skills, kind of what I was using here towards the end game. But depending on the gear that you have, you will adjust this. I will have a max roll guide up for this as well. I will be writing the leveling guide for Bing, so I'll make sure I have this linked in the description as well if you're not trying to have to click through this video and remember it, because I'm not going to go over all of the different trees in this video, but they will be all covered for every step of the way in the max roll guide. So you do have your arrow sentry here with this hunting tempo, slow projectile. Early on, this will just be wind projectile. We are now getting wind projectile from our helmet, so it's not going to be that now. We have added physical damage, Nova Shot, and recklessness here. And then we will be using a compound source, limber, stretch, and auto charge. And then you have centralized loading with quick mobility. This can start as blink, but this is really good once you get it, because it gives you a really nice big damage buff for your sentries, and it does snapshot. So as long as you use your centralized loading and then you cast your one sentry, you will still have 2 stacks of this buff up, and it will keep that 90% damage bonus through the entire time or the entire duration of the sentries. Then we are using blurry steps here just for increased movement speed. I enjoy being able to map quickly. You can run a there's quite a few things you can run here instead if you want. You can run a curse, you can run a burst of anger, you can run a bull's rage, not bull's rage, sorry. You can run again, you can run burst of anger, you can run a defensive skill here if you want, or you can just continue to run blurry steps. This is kind of a flex slot. I personally like to use blurry steps just for mapping as long as I can. When I need to start adding defenses is when blurry steps will typically get dropped for something else. So then the other really important one here is going to be your archery bond. This is actually going to give your arrow sentries a massive bonus. So I'll show you the DPS difference without the archery bonds down. So if I actually just cast these and the archery bonds are not down, you'll see that the damage that they're actually doing is going to be a couple hundred million here. I'll show you the gear after this, and you'll see like why the damage is still pretty low. But and then if I actually put down the arrow sentries with them, you'll see their damage will just absolutely start to skyrocket. So you'll be getting 4 times extra damage because of your arrow sentry versus what you get if you don't end up casting them. So if you are going to use this skill, keep in mind, again, you typically will want to place the order of what you're placing things. You'll want to place down your archery bond first, and then you throw down your arrow sentries, just because the circle range on the arrow sentries sometimes can be a little random as to where they choose to go down. So it's possible to miss basically when you first place it. If you do miss, you could always just move your sentries as well. So just keep an eye on it to make sure that your sentries are actually inside of this when you do spawn them. And then for your supports while you're leveling up, if you need the defenses, with the change to elemental resistance, you're going to have the offense pretty early on, so you're probably not going to even need to be running the precise projectiles. So you can just run elemental resistance here instead, with concentrated, with stand as one, with selfishness, and with aura amplification if you just want to get a ton of additional resistances here. So you can see this is 7%, so we're at about 300% aura effect, I think, on this. Let's take a look. So 200%. So this is going to give you, again, you will be getting an additional basically 21% to all of your res just from elemental resistance in this setup. So you can use that to bridge kind of that early mapping part where you do not have all of your resistances yet on your gear, and then you can drop this for an offensive aura later on once you actually get that. And then for your second one, you'll just be running an acuteness imbue here with imbue buff, and then you can put a mark on here as well for some additional damage that will end up proccing from the acute strike that procs this. If you are going to get to the point where you actually have enough sealed mana, or you are ready to move off of the elemental res setup here, again, you can run precise projectiles and elemental res, or precise projectiles and weapon amplification. There's a lot of flex here, and it's really going to come down to the gear that you have. But this one is simplified here. You just go with one massive buff here first, and then you can decide what you want to do afterwards later on. So you don't really have to think about that. In regards to the gear, the main things that you're really looking for, especially while you're going to be leveling up, is you will want to be looking for a Howling Wind. You can start getting this in the last treasure trove. And then as soon as you actually get into maps, Bow of Endless Dusk is going to be the end game bow that you are looking for. I've started to pull this up into a spreadsheet here, kind of going over every single thing. Again, this is going to be covered in the max roll, so you don't really need to be worrying about it right now. But the main legendaries that you are going to be looking for are going to be this Blind Vision, Howling Wind, and Bow of Endless Dusk. Your Relic mod, again, you're looking for is this additional damage if there's an elite nearby. For the Memory mod, it is this additional projectile damage here. And then when it comes to stats to focus, is you're pretty much just going to be going down this list here of Dexterity, projectile damage, elemental damage, physical damage, your crit chance, crit damage, and double damage chance. And then for your defenses, it's just going to be your standard stuff of life, elemental res, erosion res, some armor, and defense. So again, this is what I'm going to recommend to start with. If you want to shift into ES afterwards, it probably will be better, but it is going to take a bit longer to actually gear yourself into the ES version of the build. In regards to the patch notes, let me see if I can even find them real fast. The patch notes have been modified, so the way that the uniques are dropping now, the legendaries rather are dropping, they are changing quite a bit. So if we look at the Bow of Endless Dusk here, let me find it. Bow of Endless, there we go, Bow of Endless Dusk. Now instead of having all of the mods that it has on it here, you can see that it just has the important mod that it basically starts with, which is the adding the percentage of physical damage as fire, cold, and lightning. You can see here that you can get it to drop with up to 4 craftable affix slots on it here. So basically, you're going to be in charge of just crafting the gear attack speed back on this, the attack critical strike rating for the gear back on this, and then the additional physical damage back on it as well. So with this, you may see basically a tiny amount of change on this in regards to how much damage you're getting out of it, but it's still going to be overall your best bow. While you're leveling up, you're pretty much just going to be looking at every single bow that you can get. Most of the legendary bows are going to cover you very, very well. Again, while you're leveling, you can either get Ralph's Ambition or Plain Echo. They're both good. If you get Shadow of Thunderlight's Fury, that's also a pretty nice leveling bow that you can get. So those are fine. And then again, you have Phantasm and other things while you're leveling. I'm just going to go ahead and showcase a map with this. This is a leveling build that I've been using that I was messing around with on here that is just a bunch of evasion. So I don't actually have any damage on this gear. So the 1.1 billion damage you're seeing here is with basically the only thing that actually gives damage on this build right now is the bow, the necklace, and the helmet. So everything else is just blank stats. There isn't really any damage on any of these. I guess there's fervor on the gloves, but that's it. As you can see from the belt and everything, this is literally just mainly evasion and then some little things like that. So the chest itself, not really giving anything either. But with the new patch, you are just going to be dex scaling instead, because they have adjusted the dexterity to dex will now give you 0.5% damage for every single point of dex that you get. So every single skill will have its own thing that it scales off of. In this case, this is dex. I guess I can't buy a... I guess I'm going to have to just buy a normal beacon here, because I don't think it's going to allow me to buy a T8 yet. Or a T7 even. So, well, I guess we get a T6 demonstration, which is fine. It's, we can work with that. Again, this gear's janky. I don't have any res on, so... but I'll still showcase just kind of how much where you're at kind of offensively. You don't really have to worry about damage too much, just because of the fact that the range on your sentries is actually quite far. These will shoot pretty far off screen, so you can see if I place these, as long as they have line of sight, they're shooting like, you know, a screen and a half up on the screen. So this is why the playstyle, you know, if you're running around at blurry steps, you drop your sentry. You want to make sure that you're not casting more than every like 1 to 1.4 seconds or so, or not casting more than 3 times in 1.4 seconds rather, because of high tempo. This, you want to ensure this buff is up, and then you also get that damage bonus if you haven't cast a sentry in a second. So you can see this kind of the pattern of what you're doing is you are throwing down sentries, and then you're basically just hitting your blurry steps and your movement skills in order to move around. You pretty much don't really end up needing to drop archery bond until you get to bosses. And then you can drop that down for that extra damage. But for the most part, while you're leveling, it's just going to be, you know, hitting your W and your E in order to start to get your basically your blink, and then your blurry steps, and then you'll drop a sentry, you know, every couple screens, or basically every couple seconds, in order to clear the couple screens behind and in front of you. So, yeah, I will be getting some more updates done for this build as the league progresses and as things come out. We're all just going off of patch notes right now, so everything is still kind of up in the air. Bing definitely did get some small buffs. They did mention there's probably going to be more buffs coming for Bing, so I don't know if the patch notes are going to get adjusted, but we'll just have to wait and see. And other than that, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and other than that, see you in the next one.